You pick up a book, not just any book, one that everyone says you need to read, the one that could change your perspective, sharpen your thinking, make you better. Your hand hovers over the cover. You flip to page 1. The first sentence sits there waiting, but you don't read it. Instead, your mind starts calculating. Is this the right book for right now? Should you be reading something more technical, more practical? What if this book conflicts with what you learned last month? What if you forget the key points halfway through? Should you take notes, highlights, both? What system should you use? You've heard people debate margin notes versus notebooks versus digital annotations for years. Your brain cycles through every possible approach before you've read a single word. The book stays closed. This happens again tomorrow and the day after. A mountain of unread books grows beside your bed. You're not lazy, you're not uninterested, you're trapped in overthinking paralysis. And if you're intelligent, the trap is even tighter. The higher the verbal IQ, the stronger the tendency to overthink. Researchers at Sunai Downstate Medical Center discovered patients with generalized anxiety disorder frequently scored higher on verbal intelligence tests than the general population. Intelligence creates more options. More options demand more analysis. More analysis depletes the very resources needed to decide. It's a cognitive death spiral, and books become its most common victim. Here's what most people miss. When you're deciding whether to read, your brain isn't just processing one choice. It's running parallel simulations of dozens of futures. Timeline 1, you read this book and waste 3 days on information you already know. Timeline 2, you skip it and miss the one insight that could have solved your biggest problem. Timeline 3, you read it but choose the wrong note-taking method and lose everything. Timeline 4, you read a different book first, and this one makes more sense later. Timeline 5, you wait for the summary. Timeline 6, you buy the audiobook instead. Timelines 7 through 43 keep branching. Your working memory, the cognitive RAM that holds information while you think, maxes out fast. Research shows working memory capacity directly limits decision quality. When you overload it, performance on complex tasks collapses. The smarter you are, the more timelines you generate. The more timelines, the faster the crash. Clinical data from Sunai Downstate Medical Center and the September 2024 Census Journal study on working memory workload and decision-making using EEG analysis from Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, showing how alpha and beta brainwave patterns collapse under cognitive load. Now back to the information. 1900, a personal library of 200 books marked you as exceptionally well read. 2025, a single search returns 4 million results. Amazon lists over 33 million titles. Project Gutenberg offers 70,000 free books. Audible has 600,000 audiobooks. You're not choosing a book, you're navigating an ocean of infinite choice, and psychologist Barry Schwartz documented exactly what that does to human cognition in his 2004 landmark work. Schwartz called it the paradox of choice. He ran experiments where shoppers faced 6 jam varieties versus 24 varieties. 30% of people bought jam when shown 6 options. Only 3% bought when shown 24. The abundant choice didn't increase satisfaction, it killed action entirely. A 2015 meta-analysis incorporating 99 studies confirmed it. When choice set complexity increases, when decision task difficulty rises, when preference uncertainty dominates, people freeze. They don't choose better, they stop choosing. Second, choose the depth, introductory or advanced or academic. Third, choose the format, physical or digital or audio. Fourth, choose the consumption method, cover to cover or strategic sections or speed reading or spaced repetition. Fifth, choose the integration system, fleeting notes or permanent notes or Zettelkasten or mind maps or Cornell method or nothing at all. Sixth, decide whether to read alone or join a book club or find a discussion partner. Seventh, determine the optimal time. Morning when you're fresh, or evening when you're relaxed, or during commute, or never because you have 17 other priorities. Each decision branches into 5 more decisions. An intelligent mind sees every branch. Seeing every branch means walking none of them. Evolution built your decision-making systems for environments with limited options. Hunt the deer or don't. Eat the berries or don't. 70,000 years of cognitive development in scarcity suddenly faces 70 million choices in abundance. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's decision center, runs on glucose. Neuroscientist Roy Baumeister's research showed decision-making depletes willpower like a muscle depletes glycogen. Make too many choices, even tiny ones, and your ability to make the next choice deteriorates. By decision number 47 of the day, your brain starts defaulting to the easiest option. Do nothing. Leave the book closed. Your brain labels reading as an incomplete task, a failure point, something that requires exceptional conditions to succeed. So now you're not just choosing to read, you're choosing to override a detected failure pattern. That takes even more cognitive resources. Resources you don't have because you burned them deciding what to eat for breakfast, which email to answer first, whether to take the stairs or elevator, and which of 8 possible routes to take to work. The reading decision arrives pre-sabotaged. Results showed perfectionistic concerns strongly predicted procrastinatory automatic thoughts. Translation: people who demand perfect outcomes from themselves generate intrusive thoughts that prevent action. The pathway runs through fear of failure. First, you set impossible standards. Second, you recognize you might not meet those standards. Third, fear activates. Fourth, procrastination protects you from experiencing that fear. The book becomes dangerous because reading it imperfectly, retaining 60% instead of 95%, or misunderstanding a key concept means failure. Not reading means you never failed. Your perfectionist brain prefers the safety of 0 over the risk of imperfect. High IQ individuals exhibited perfectionist tendencies at significantly elevated rates. The tendency wasn't limited to academic work. It seeped into appearance, communication, home organization, and decision-making. When everything must be done right, starting anything becomes a gamble. Reading the wrong book the wrong way at the wrong time isn't just inefficient. To a perfectionist intellect, it's a moral failing. So you research the perfect reading system before you start. You compare methods. You read articles about how to read articles. You watch videos about optimal retention techniques. You build a system in your head so sophisticated that implementing it requires a PhD in personal knowledge management. By the time you're ready to read, 3 months passed and the book's information became outdated. Get mauled by a predator once, develop a healthy fear of that predator, live longer. The system worked when failures killed you. Now failures just embarrass you, but your amygdala, the fear center in your brain, doesn't distinguish between physical and social threats. A study examining perfectionism and academic procrastination in medical students in 2025 found that fear of failure mediated the pathway between perfectionist tendencies and task avoidance. Medical students delayed clinical practice because they feared patient harm. The fear was rational. The response, avoiding practice entirely, was paralytic. Intelligent readers do the same thing. They fear intellectual harm, wasting time on a bad book, developing incorrect mental models, missing superior alternatives, being unable to defend their choice if someone asks why they read that particular book instead of this other universally acclaimed one. The fear is rational. Books take hours. Hours are finite. Choose wrong and you've permanently lost that time. But the response, reading nothing, guarantees the loss. They attributed accomplishments to luck, timing deceiving others. Despite evidence of competence, they felt like frauds. Intelligence doesn't protect against imposter syndrome. Research suggests it amplifies it. The smarter you are, the more you know what you don't know. Dunning-Kruger effect shows incompetent people overestimate their ability while competent people underestimate theirs. You're intelligent enough to recognize the gaps in your knowledge. Those gaps feel like chasms. Every unread book represents another chasm. Starting to read means confronting exactly how much you don't know. Your brain would rather maintain the comfortable illusion that you could read and understand if you chose to, rather than test that hypothesis and risk discovering you can't. Decision fatigue studies show judges give more favorable parole rulings in the morning than the afternoon. Same evidence, same crimes, different times. By afternoon, judges' decision-making capacity depletes. They default to the safer choice, deny parole. Your reading decision faces similar depletion. By evening, when you finally have time to read, you've made 300 micro-decisions. Your brain has nothing left. It defaults to the safest choice. Don't start. Watch something instead. Scroll instead. Anything that doesn't require choosing the right book, the right approach, the right outcome. Correlations identified task aversiveness and delay as strong predictors of procrastination. Reading delivers its rewards later. You invest hours now for knowledge you might use weeks from now. Scrolling delivers dopamine immediately. Your limbic system, the emotional reward center, screams for the immediate hit. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, argues for the long-term gain. The limbic system wins because it's louder and faster and older in evolutionary terms. 300 million years of evolution optimized for immediate survival. 300,000 years since modern humans emerged. 300 years since widespread literacy. Your brain's voting with its evolutionary age. Immediate wins. You know books contain concentrated expertise. You know reading builds vocabulary, improves focus, enhances empathy, strengthens analytical thinking. You've read all the research proving reading's benefits. That knowledge makes not reading more painful. You're not just failing to read. You're failing to do the thing you know intellectually you should do. The gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do creates cognitive dissonance. Your brain hates cognitive dissonance. It resolves dissonance by either changing behavior or changing belief. Changing behavior means starting to read. That's hard. Changing belief means convincing yourself reading isn't that important, or you'll start tomorrow, or you're too busy right now. That's easy. So you tell yourself tomorrow while knowing tomorrow you'll tell yourself tomorrow again. Read broadly across disciplines, or deeply within one. Read classics or contemporary. Read what's popular or what's obscure. Read to learn or read to relax, or read to signal intelligence, or read because you want to. Each strategy has merit. Each has trade-offs. An intelligent mind sees all the trade-offs. Seeing all the trade-offs makes choosing one feel arbitrary. Why this strategy over that equally valid one? You can't answer, so you don't choose. Information overload research from psychology shows the more information people receive, the worse their decisions become. A classic experiment gave participants information about hypothetical job candidates. Participants with moderate information made better hiring decisions than participants with extensive information. Extra data didn't clarify, it confused. Reading decisions drown in information, book reviews, star ratings, Goodreads recommendations, friend suggestions, expert lists, algorithm picks. Every information source contradicts another. One reviewer calls it life-changing, another calls it obvious. 5 stars, and 1 star attached to the same book. Your intelligent mind tries processing all inputs, weighing credibility, identifying bias, separating signal from noise. The processing never completes. You're still analyzing while the book sits unread. The paradox of expertise explains part of it. Studies show experts in a field often perform worse on tasks when overthinking. A classic study examined skilled golfers. When asked to focus consciously on their putting technique, their performance dropped. When allowed to putt automatically, their skill returned. Overthinking disrupted the unconscious competence they developed. Intelligent readers do this backward. They overthink before developing any competence. They analyze optimal reading techniques before reading enough to know what works for them personally. They're trying to consciously optimize a skill that requires unconscious practice to develop. It's like analyzing the perfect swimming stroke before getting in the water. The analysis prevents the practice that would render the analysis unnecessary. Maximizers versus satisficers explains the split. Maximizers seek the best option. Satisficers seek good enough. Barry Schwartz's research showed maximizers spend more time deciding, feel less satisfied, experience more regret, show higher depression rates. Intelligence predicts maximizing. Spending 10 hours choosing a book 8% better than the 10-minute choice means losing 9 hours 50 minutes, 200 pages unread. The maximizer's curse. Perfect prevents good. If you're not reading, are you intellectual? Identity requires behavior. Behavior feels impossible. Trapped between identity and action, the book stays closed. But building architecture admits needing external structure. Intelligence resists, so willpower fails repeatedly. You know overthinking prevents action. Knowing makes you think about overthinking. Thinking about overthinking is more overthinking. Meta, cognitive trap. 17 layers deep. Book unopened. Intelligence that could solve any problem can't solve its own interference. This script uses sources from the January 2025 study published in Scientific Reports on Academic Procrastination and Emotional Regulation, examining 290 medical students in southern Iran, and the 2024 analysis in the Journal of Psychoeducational Assessment on Perfectionism and Procrastination, examining 327 students using validated scales showing fear of failure, mediates, the relationship between perfectionist traits and task avoidance. Now, back to the information. Meanwhile, the default mode network, which should quiet during focused tasks, stays loud. Your brain's running multiple programs simultaneously. Decision program, fear program, self-monitoring program, all competing for the same glucose and oxygen. No single program gets enough resources to complete. You're cognitively gridlocked. A 2024 study published in Sensors tracked 24 participants performing complex decision-making tasks while measuring brain activity. Alpha and beta wave patterns decreased in temporal and parietal regions during encoding, indicating verbal working memory activation. When working memory overloaded, these patterns collapsed. Decision quality plummeted. The participants weren't less intelligent under load. They were less able to access their intelligence. Intelligent reading decisions require working memory. Working memory has limits. Exceed the limits and intelligence becomes irrelevant. You can't think your way out of thinking too much. Players with higher working memory capacity performed better on intuitive decisions, but only when they weren't overthinking. When players consciously analyzed their technique, performance dropped regardless of working memory capacity. The conscious analysis disrupted automatic expertise. For readers, there's no automatic expertise yet. You're consciously analyzing before you've built the unconscious competence. It's double paralysis. Too much thinking before you've done enough doing to make thinking unnecessary. A less intelligent mind doesn't. The calculation creates paralysis. You're trying to optimize a 40-year reading strategy before starting book 1. It's impossible. The impossibility prevents starting. Intelligent people simulate both timelines, equal opposite forces. Equilibrium equals nothing. The Google effect shows worse memory when information is accessible later. Brain optimizes by not storing what's easily looked up. Books are accessible. Read later. Later becomes never. Availability makes it less urgent. Why read now when any time works? Any time means no time. Space that could decide what to read is occupied. By the time residue clears, it's 11 p.m., too tired. Tomorrow brings different residue, same effect. Depleted willpower defaults to easiest option, whatever you were already doing. Scrolling continues. Tomorrow comes, it's today now. Today looks worse than tomorrow again. Infinite cycle. Starting requires self-control. You have none left. Why start what you'll stop? The learned response is, don't try. Every previous failure strengthens the helplessness. Breaking the pattern requires one success. But achieving one success requires breaking the pattern. You're stuck in a prerequisite loop. It's simple, but it's not simple when you're paralyzed by analysis. Their advice feels useless because they've forgotten the paralysis phase. They broke through it years ago and don't remember how, or they never experienced it because they're not intelligent enough to generate the overthinking that causes it. Either way, their guidance doesn't address your specific trap. Someone reads 3 books weekly. You read 3 books yearly. Someone retains 90%. You retain 40%. Someone integrates ideas across disciplines effortlessly. You struggle to remember what you read last month. The comparison suggests you're reading wrong. If you're reading wrong, you should fix it before continuing. But fixing requires research. Research is analysis. Analysis is paralysis. You're back in the loop. The perfectionism procrastination link gets worse over time. A 2024 meta-analysis examining procrastination across 27 studies from 2014 to 2024 identified perfectionism as a core factor in academic procrastination. Students with perfectionistic concerns showed elevated procrastinatory cognitions. The perfectionism triggered fear of failure. Fear triggered avoidance. Avoidance became habitual. Over time, the habit strengthened while the original perfectionist goal remained. You still want to read perfectly. You're just avoiding more consistently. Feeling good reduces motivation for real pursuit. Meanwhile, obstacles go unaddressed. Analysis paralysis, perfectionism, decision fatigue. Ignoring obstacles means not addressing them. They persist. They prevent fantasy from becoming reality. You intend to read. Intention is cheap. Action is expensive. Action requires overcoming barriers. Intention requires thinking. Reading would be nice. Intelligence maintains intention without action indefinitely by explaining why you haven't started yet. Choosing a book, finding a spot, ignoring your phone, maintaining focus for 30 minutes. The concrete version has friction, the abstract version doesn't. Intelligence makes abstraction easy. You can live in the abstract space indefinitely. The abstract space never forces concrete action. Years pass in pleasant abstract intention while 0 concrete pages turn. You identify as intellectual without doing intellectual activities. The identity feels real because you're smart enough to talk intelligently about books you haven't read. You've read summaries, reviews, discussions. You can hold your own in conversations. The social proof of intellectual identity is maintained without the private action of reading. There's no external forcing function to expose the gap, so the gap persists invisibly. The paradox of autobiographical memory shows people remember emotional peaks and endings, but forget duration. If you had a terrible reading experience with one book, you remember the frustration vividly. You forget the 20 books you enjoyed. The negative memory dominates. It creates expectation of future negative experience. That expectation generates avoidance. Meanwhile, you're accurately remembering one bad experience and inaccurately forgetting 20 good ones. But the brain's memory bias ensures the bad one weighs heavier in decision-making. Not reading generates abstract, distant regret. Reading the wrong book generates immediate, concrete regret. Immediate, concrete emotions weigh heavier than distant, abstract ones. So you avoid the immediate regret by not reading. You accept the distant regret because distant regret feels less real. It will help, but you're overestimating the impact. Overestimating the impact raises the stakes. Higher stakes mean bigger decisions. Bigger decisions trigger more analysis. More analysis creates paralysis. If you accurately assessed reading as modestly helpful rather than life-changing, the decision would shrink. Smaller decisions are easier, but intelligence tends toward maximizing impact estimates. That maximization backfires. Psychological reactance theory shows people resist when they feel controlled. Someone tells you you should read. Your autonomy feels threatened. You resist by not reading. But you also believe you should read, so you're resisting yourself. The resistance manifests as inability to choose. You're simultaneously pushing yourself to read and resisting being pushed. The internal conflict creates stalemate. Both forces cancel. Nothing moves. The spotlight effect means you think people notice you more than they do. You imagine everyone judges your reading choices. What you read, how much you read. In reality, nobody's thinking about your reading habits. They're thinking about their own reading habits. But the imagined judgment creates pressure. Pressure triggers fear. Fear activates avoidance. You're running from an audience that doesn't exist. The action paralysis research from MIT Sloan Management Review examined organizations oscillating between analysis paralysis and extinction by instinct. The middle path between too much thinking and too little thinking is narrow. Organizations that succeeded found systematic processes that prevented both extremes. Most failed by swinging wildly between overthinking and underthinking. Individual readers do the same thing. Months of analysis paralysis, then impulsive purchase of 5 books you'll never read, then back to paralysis. The swinging doesn't converge to the middle, it just oscillates. But too much analysis prevents any decision. You need awareness of the trap. But awareness of the trap doesn't spring the trap because the trap is awareness itself. You're trapped by the thing that should free you. Make reading the default and optimize what you do when you're not reading. Don't choose the perfect book. Choose any reasonable book and start. Don't plan the perfect reading system. Read without a system until a system emerges from experience. Don't think your way to action. Act your way to clarity. From testing whether you're actually as smart as you think you are. Reading exposes knowledge gaps. Gaps threaten identity. The paralysis maintains the comfortable uncertainty where you might be brilliant if only you'd read. Reading risks discovering you're not. The paralysis is fear wearing an intelligence costume. Intelligence is the justification. Fear is the cause. A 2024 study published in Nature Scientific Reports examined decision paralysis in customers ordering food. 40% of cases showed paralysis from overwhelm at where to start. With too many options, people froze choosing any. Another 48% showed paralysis from distraction. Mind wandering made decision impossible. The study from 2021 in Transnational Marketing Journal examined restaurant menu, length and decision paralysis. Longer menus increase time to order and decrease satisfaction with choice. The parallel to reading is exact. More books equals slower choice equals less satisfaction. 55% of medical students procrastinate on reading clinical material. Approximately 20 to 25% of all people are chronic procrastinators. You're not broken, you're normal. The paralysis isn't a personal failure. It's a predictable response to an environment your brain wasn't built for. Infinite choice, infinite information, finite time, finite cognitive resources. The math doesn't work. Your brain knows it. Paralysis is the symptom of the knowing. If X situation occurs, then I'll do Y action. Technology tools like commitment apps and digital planning reduced procrastination through external accountability. But here's the finding that matters. The most effective intervention was personalized and multidimensional, not one solution. A combination tailored to individual psychological profile. Remove the phone. Others need social accountability. Book clubs. Some need tiny commitments. 1 page. Some need large blocks. 3 hours Saturday morning. Some need variety. Switch books freely. Some need consistency. 1 book until finished. Intelligence wants the universal optimal solution. There isn't one. The solution is experiment-derived personal data. But experiments require action. Action requires escaping paralysis. Paralysis prevents experiments. You're back in the loop. The decision happened automatically. The paralysis can't stop what already occurred. The more you watch yourself read, the worse you read. The more you analyze your reading process, the less you actually read. The intelligence that could master anything masters nothing because it's too busy watching itself try to master. Reading challenges started and abandoned. Productivity systems designed and unused. The digital graveyard of intelligent people's reading intentions spans terabytes. Every abandoned system is evidence, not a failure, of the trap. The system won't save you. The system is another form of analysis. More analysis deepens paralysis. Research tracking students over 4 years showed reading comprehension developed through volume, not technique. Students who read more books with simple methods outperformed students who read fewer books with sophisticated methods. Volume beat optimization. Consistency beat perfection. The intelligent students optimized. The less intelligent students read. 4 years later, the less intelligent students comprehended better because they'd read 40 more books. The optimization prevented the volume that would have made optimization unnecessary. Intelligence defeated itself. It happens automatically, like brushing teeth. The intelligence that creates analysis paralysis is the same intelligence that recognizes this fact. You know habits work. You know automation works. You know decision elimination works. Knowing doesn't make you do it. Knowing is analysis. Analysis is the problem pretending to be the solution. Students in Iran found emotional regulation difficulties, predicted procrastination independently of self-efficacy. Students who couldn't manage anxiety procrastinated regardless of confidence in their abilities. The anxiety was fear, fear of failure, fear of inadequacy, fear of wasted effort, fear of discovering limits. Intelligent people feel all these fears more intensely because intelligence means imagining all possible negative futures vividly. Less intelligent people don't simulate the failures as clearly. Clear failure simulation creates stronger fear. Stronger fear creates deeper paralysis. Book closed tomorrow. Under extreme load, The prefrontal cortex surrendered control to more primitive systems. The automatic systems made decisions based on simple heuristics, proximity, familiarity, ease. But you keep trying because that's what intelligence does. It tries to think its way out. The trying maintains the overload. The overload prevents the thinking. You're caught in a cognitive DOS attack, distributed denial of service. Your own intelligence is flooding your decision-making system with requests until the system crashes. The same working memory limits, the same decision fatigue, the same analysis paralysis, unless you do what intelligence resists. Stop deciding. Start reading. Pick up the book, open to page 1, read the first sentence, then the second. Your brain will analyze whether this is the right book. Ignore it. Read the third sentence. Your brain will question the approach. Ignore it. Read the fourth. Not in the reading itself. Once reading begins, flow can emerge. Flow is the state where self-consciousness dissolves and action becomes automatic. But flow requires starting. Starting requires bypassing the decision trap. Bypassing the trap requires accepting imperfection. Reading the wrong book imperfectly with no system is infinitely better than reading nothing perfectly with the ideal system. The brain that creates the paralysis also contains the solution. But the solution isn't more intelligence, it's intelligence stepping aside. Let the automatic systems choose, let proximity choose. The nearest book is the right book, let familiarity choose. The book you've heard about most is the right book, let ease choose. The shortest book is the right book. Any heuristic beats analysis when analysis produces paralysis. You're intelligent enough to know this is true. You're reading this now, understanding every word, recognizing the pattern in yourself. The recognition changes nothing. Recognition is thinking. Thinking maintains the trap. What changes things is action despite thinking. Action before thinking. Action instead of thinking. The intelligence that got you trapped can't get you out because intelligence is the trap. The way out is ancient. Older than intelligence, older than analysis. It's the doing without deciding, the moving without planning, the starting without choosing. The only thing that breaks the trap is the thing intelligence most resists: thoughtless action, dumb luck choosing, imperfect starting. The window before intelligence catches up and starts running simulations. In that window, anything's possible, but the window is small, smaller than the time it takes to recognize it exists. By the time you think about the window, it closed. You have to move through it blindly. Move first, think later. Read first, decide later. But recklessness is the only force strong enough to overcome analysis paralysis. Careful thought created the trap. Reckless action is the only escape. And you're intelligent enough to know that intelligence sometimes needs to shut up and let the body move. The body knows how to read. The body knows how to turn pages. The brain just needs to stop interfering. It will wait forever because books don't care, but you care. The part of you underneath the intelligence cares. That part is tired of the paralysis, tired of the planning, tired of the systems, tired of walking past the same book for the 1,000th time with the same unacted intention. That part wants to read, not think about reading, not plan reading, not optimize reading, just read. It can't argue with intelligence. It can't outthink the overthinking. All it can do is move when intelligence isn't watching. The moment of distraction, the moment of tiredness, the moment when your guard drops and your hand reaches before your brain can stop it. In that moment, the book opens. And once it's open, intelligence can either help or stay silent. Either way, you're reading. Finally. It's in your hands. Stop trying to think your way to action. Move your way to clarity. The book is right there. You know which one. You've known for months. Stop pretending you don't know. Stop pretending you need more information. Stop pretending you're still deciding. You've been deciding for years. The decision is made. You want to read. The only question is whether you'll let intelligence stop you one more time. Or whether you'll move faster than thought and pick up the book before the analysis begins. That's the only thing that matters. Not what book, not what method, not what system. Just whether your hand moves before your mind catches up. That's the war. Hand versus mind. Body versus analysis. Simple versus complex. In that war, complexity always wins unless simplicity moves first. So move, now, before intelligence explains why you shouldn't,